So hello and welcome again to the second part of the video. We are continuing with the topic on investment and its importance in the economy. So this is the second part in the series. We have already covered 10 questions in the first part. If you haven't watched it already, please go and watch from the link in the description box. So you will get the rough idea of what we are talking about basically. So we are again joined by Bhavna ma'am. So we are here to start the second part of this series. So coming to the another question that we have already talked about so much about the agriculture sector, about the infrastructure sector. So coming to the policies of government on the privatization, basically, if we term it as. So, like we have seen that there are certain sectors in the Indian economy which have the monopoly of government, and they are not rising, and they are still lagging behind. And on the other hand, if we see that there are certain sectors which are not controlled by the government, and they are continuously rising. For example, we have seen that pharma sector, IT sector, automobile sector. Uh, Earlier automobile sector had a presence of a government in the form of PSU, Hindustan Motors, but now they have exited from the that sector. So these three sectors are basically uh, we can say that they are continuously rising, and India is one of the global leaders in these sectors. And coming to the handling of ports, like major ports are handled by government, and their growth is stagnant, while the minor ports which are sort of privatized in the hands of private sector, and they have seen a tremendous growth over the years. And I'm quoting this from the economic survey itself. So in spite of knowing these things, why did government still hold on in different sectors instead of opening it completely for the private sector? So this is my rough question, sorry.
Okay. So, in my views, I don't think so that 100% privatization is a sustainable option in the long run. Of course, the role of private players is equally important in the economic growth of the country. For example, private business firms, they work efficiently and effectively in every possible domain, but there has to be an authority over them to regulate their behavior and their actions. So I think that state or a presence of government control on certain essential sectors is equally important. Otherwise, the private sectors or players will start monopolizing the sector entirely and they use it for their own personal interest, right? So I would rather prefer a joint venture sort of partnership or public-private partnership where the private player can they do bring efficiency into the sector and can do its job while the government can keep an eye on their actions and regulate their behavior. So there's a particular term in economics called disinvestment, which basically means that the government is selling PSUs to the private allowing private players to enter into the PSUs, right? But the ownership remains in the hands of the government with the 51% of the shares with the government, and the rest 49% remains with the private players. So I think if the government really needs to disinvest some of the areas or sectors or PSUs, then it should allow the ownership in its own hands, and the rest will follow with the private sectors. Yeah.
Yeah, so government has already introduced, I think, the disinvestment, if the term is, and there is
Yes.
also they have
Correct.
divided sectors in strategic and non-strategic sectors. So yeah, you have said correctly that government should act as a overall controller of the economy. It's fine, and public and private should act together. So India is a mixed economy, although. So coming to the next question, to talk about the external sector in India, that is flow of foreign portfolio investment in India, especially in the stock market. So my question is that why it happens that Indian stock market is too much dependent on foreign portfolio investment, like we have seen during the pandemic as well. And whenever the central bank of USA, that is Federal Reserve, whenever they hike rates, the FPI from India started to flow outside India, and which led to the collapse of market in India. So my question is that why is it so that Indian stock market is too much dependent on the federal monetary policies of the outside governments and not depend on the domestic policy?
Okay. So I would like to start answering this question with a with that why you are obviously you asked that why the Indian stock market is too much dependent on the federal monetary policy, or for that matter the US stock market, right? So first of all, I would like to say that the US dollar is the universal currency, or we call it as a vehicle currency, right? You can use US dollar everywhere, anywhere in the world. You cannot use Indian rupee everywhere or anywhere in the world to for the international transaction, right? So before answering this question, I would like to first differentiate between what FDIs are and what FPIs are. So these two are the largest component of the capital account in the balance of payment in India. FPI is nothing but it stands for Foreign Portfolio Investment, which consists of securities and other financial assets passively held by foreign investors. Now, it doesn't provide the investor with the direct ownership of the financial assets, and it includes stocks, bonds, mutual funds, exchange traded funds as well. Now, FPI often referred to as the hot market because it has the tendency to flee at the time of economic slowdown or any other economic crisis. So FPI is more volatile, it is more liquid, and therefore riskier than the FDIs. But despite the fact that it has these disadvantages, I would say it has benefits as well. So the first benefit of FPI is the accessibility to international credit market. Second is it increases the liquidity in the domestic capital market, and third is also promotes the development of equity market. Now, why the FPI is more attracted towards the Indian market is because Indian market is has the opportunity and has the potential, right, to create or to expand worldwide. So it has the largest market, and it has a lower competition, which basically make it obviously make attractive to any investor. But the main question is that the why the but the main concern is that whether the India is able to do better from the rest of the world or not. And you obviously you spoke about the US stock market. Then let me tell you the Wall Street, Wall Street, or the National Stock Exchange, and where I mean the different companies has been listed, as per their economic performance and the shares that they have, they own, right? So also you have spoke about the hike in the federal interest rate. So definitely a rise in or a hike in interest rates by Fed impact both the Indian economy as well as its in Indian stock market. The market tends to come down. Foreign investors pull out, foreign exchange reserve starts to deplete, and the economy is at the risk of mounting inflation. So all these things happen due to increase in the Fed interest rate by Fed. So I think it's going to I mean it is working in the it is favoring the Indian economy positively. I mean the FPIs and the FDIs both.
Yeah, so you have talked about FDIs as well. So my question is about that only. So my question is, how did India is able to maintain such a huge forex reserve when we see that every year India encounters around $200 billion of trade deficit in the merchandise
Okay.
trade? So
Yeah.
when pandemic was the only time in, I think, last couple of decades when India had a surplus, and that too not because of rising India's export, but due to the decrease in the imports that we were importing from foreign market. So why is it so that in spite of having so much wide trade deficit, India is still able to hold around 500 or 550 some odd $billion in its forex
Correct.
reserves?
Yeah. Okay. So foreign exchange reserves are nothing but they are the assets held on reserve by a central bank. In case of India, it's RBI, right? In foreign currencies, which includes bonds, treasury bills, and government securities. Uh, and most of the foreign exchange reserves are held in US dollars, as I have already mentioned that US, because US dollar is a vehicle or the universal currency, right? So in case of India, India's foreign forex reserve include four kind of components. So first is foreign currency assets, gold reserves, special drawing rights, and reserve reverse tranche position with the IMF. So the former two falls into the category of tangible assets, and the later two falls into the category of non-tangible assets. I think as per the economic survey, the current foreign exchange reserve stands at around 563 billion dollars as per the economic survey 2020 to 23. So, and your question is that how India is able to maintain that foreign exchange reserve despite having trade deficit of 200 billion dollars, I guess. Yeah. So, so to answer this question is because India's primarily import crude oil in large quantity, right? And we all know during pandemic commercial activities were not taking place too much, right? So countries are facing economic slowdown, and and also there is a drastic fall in the price of the oil in the global market as well. And because we were not importing the same quantity of oil as before the pre-pandemic level, the import bills was less. The import bill were less, which had been reflected in the form of surplus in the balance of payment account. So I think that is why we it has shown the like surplus. That is why it is clearly visible, the surplus in the balance of payment account. So also India is the sixth largest reserve holder as per the data compiled by the IMF. So yeah.
Yeah, so India also receives so much FDI and I think remittances, so they also contribute to the
Exactly.
India's forex reserve.
Yes,
So
yes,
yeah,
sorry, I'll forgot to mention that point. The role of remittances as well, because India is the largest country in the world who received like largest share of remittances across the globe.
yeah, it recently
So
crossed $100 billion. India became the first country to do
yes,
so.
yes,
Yeah,
yes, it is. Yes, yes.
yeah. So coming to the another question, we have often heard that world economy will face slowdown, especially with the reference to the 2023, and many countries are actually facing it. We have witnessed like our neighbors, for example, uh, Pakistan. You know what is the condition. Sri Lanka, that we have uh, so-called saved it from the economic collapse, but uh, again we are not sure about the future. Myanmar military is ruling. Bangladesh is also struggling. And amid all these things, India's growth rate is still impressive and among the top performers. So how long you view that India will be able to maintain or sustain this growth rate, and India will not face that impact of whatever is going on in its neighborhood? So uh, what are your views that how long India will be able to restrict itself or say that save itself from the ongoing slowdown or the economic collapse around the world and especially in its neighborhood?
Okay. So, despite the fact that India's neighboring countries have been facing economic crunch over the past years now, India has been able to maintain high growth rates, which is a good sign for the Indian economy as a whole. In my views, I think India has been doing economically pretty well as compared to its neighboring countries. Uh, and if we look at the number of statistics, like if we look at the number of statistics, then as per the economic survey, which says that in real terms, the economy is expected to grow at 7% for the year ending March 2023. And despite the consecutive shocks of COVID-19 pandemic, the Russian-Ukraine war, of course, and the huge, current account deficit, agencies worldwide continue to project India as the fastest growing major economy at 6.5 to 7% in the coming financial year of 2023. So also because obviously I have to, it should be backed by some facts. So I'm giving you some numbers, right, so that we can have a um, discourse. In case of industry also, there's a steady recovery is visible. The GAV, which stands for gross value added of the industrial sector, rose by 3.7% for the first half of the financial year of 2022 to 23. Exports of goods and services as a share of GDP have also risen since financial year 2016. Of course, manufacturing has remained in the expansion zone. FDI's flows into the pharma industry has also risen drastically. India is the third largest economy in the world in purchasing power parity terms
Mm.
and fifth largest in market exchange rates. So, by looking at the statistics, if you're asking my perspective on this, then I think India will be able to maintain its high growth rates as compared to its neighboring countries, despite the fact that they are facing economic slowdown. So, India's economy is India's economy is pretty much stable and has the capacity to absorb external or any domestic interruption whatsoever. So India will be able to deal with all these adverse global economic challenges in the long run.
Yeah, so ending the talk with the last question. So where do you see the Indian economy in the coming decade or a couple of decade? As we have set target of first $5 trillion, then we'll achieve $10 trillion. Of course, we will achieve that. But where do you see Indian economy in a decade or couple of decade? If you could finish the talk with a positive note to conclude the
Okay, fine.
talk.
Yeah. So recently, I was watching an interview on YouTube, or I think on Money Control by Montek Singh Ahluwalia, right? So I would suggest all our audience to watch it. Go and watch that episode. It's brilliant on the current state of Indian economy and how the Indian economy is progressing recently. He said that statement in the video itself that I would like to quote here as well. That in my view, I mean, certainly Indian economy will grow faster than developed countries and emerging market economies. Okay, so India should be aiming at the growth of somewhere between 7 to 8%. But whether it will achieve it or not, it is contingent on two things. First, on the set of domestic policies, and second is the state of the world outside, right? Also, let me tell you that when we study economics, we have to answer three questions: what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce, right? So the initial two question falls into the domain of economics. Okay, the economist will decide. But the third one, for whom to produce, right? Here comes the angle of politics into the picture. So
Mm.
this is in my personal opinion, I think when the politics enters into the picture, the economic concerns always take a back seat. Always, right? And of course, not to forget the domestic politics, which basically, interrupt all these policy execution. So we have macro plans, brilliant macro plans, but the problem lies in the micro implementation or execution of that policy, right? So and also despite the fact, given the situation that India has a strongly contested democratic system, but India has a consensus on needing growth and fiscal discipline. Like we have said, I think it's a slogan of current ruling government, that sabka saath sabka vikas. So it has to be like inclusive approach in terms of economic growth, and there has to be a trickle down effect as well, right? So it should reap, the poorest section of the society also should also reap the benefit of the economic growth, higher economic growth. So I would say that in my view, India is moving towards the growth trajectory, and hopefully India will become a 5 trillion economy in the coming year. So I would like to conclude the session on this positive note.
Yeah, so to conclude that we can say that Indian economy is resilient enough to absorb all the shocks that is
Yes, yes.
coming from the outside world as well as the internal politics, and will continue to remain one of the fastest growing major economy of the world. So, so on that note, we would like to finish this talk, and we will request Bhavana ma'am to come to another video to have some talks on international relations as well, so that we can take advantages of her knowledge and implement it in our upcoming exams, and we can succeed in our exams as well. So thank you, Bhavna ma'am, for giving your time. And
Thank
any
you so much
message?
for having me here. Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. I hope that this video on Indian economy will be helpful for all our UPSC aspirants, and they get some understanding of the deeply rooted economic concerns that India has been facing. So yeah,
Yeah,
so I'll see all our audience in the next video.
yeah. Thank you so much.